Alright, this video will be another quick demonstration of using an Alexa device to manipulate a Revit model, and then I'll dig in a little bit deeper and try to show you a little bit about how that's done. So here we have a very simple Revit model, and here we have our homemade Alexa device. So let's go ahead and connect the two. Alexa, ask the intern to open test project.
The test project is open.
Say hello to Revit.
Hello, Revit. I like the cut of your jib.
Okay, great. So now they're connected, and we can ask Alexa about the model. So we can sit. No, she heard me say her name. Let's start over.
To restart the chapter or the book, use the Alexa app.
All right, here we go. Alexa, ask the intern what is on the floor of room 103.
The floor material in room 103 is CPT2.
Okay. And let's say we didn't know what CPT2 was, so we can say, Alexa, ask the intern what is CPT2.
CPT2 is carpet, manufactured by Floor. Should I text a cut sheet to your phone?
Yes.
I've sent that material cut sheet to your phone.
Okay, so that came in. There we have the link. And there is the cut sheet. So great, we learned about that material, and let's say now we want the floor material in room 101 to be the same. So we can say, Alexa, ask the intern to change the floor in room 101 to CPT2.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Let's try that again. Alexa, ask the intern to change the floor in room 101 to CPT2.
Got it. I've changed the floor in room 101 from CPT1 to CPT2. Would you like me to send that change to the project Slack channel?
Yes.
Okay, I've sent the message to the team.
Okay, so we updated the model, and we let the team know that that model's been changed. So that is working well. Now let's say we wanted to print something. So we can say, Alexa, ask the intern to print a test set.
Sure, I sent that to the printer.
And there we have a test print of our project. So that worked out. So now let's dig in a little bit deeper, and I'll show you how we made this all work. Okay, so let's dig in, and I'll show you how this was made. It's not terribly difficult, but there are a lot of parts to it, so it is complicated, and I'm not going to be able to go through all of the parts, but I will point you to some resources that should be able to get you caught up, and then and it's going to be fairly high level. So what we'll need is, you'll obviously need Revit. We use Dynamo, and then you'll need an Alexa device. We'll use the Alexa Skills Builder to create our skill. You'll need to be able to write a pretty simple Python script, and then you'll need to download ngrok as the tunnel between Python and the developer service. And if that doesn't make sense, that's okay, because we have some great tutorials that will get you going. So first you'll need to make a developer account on Amazon, and then this is a great tutorial that will get you started using the skill builder, and then this tutorial will get you started making a Python script that will talk to the skill builder. or talk to the developer service, and basically that will create the skill. If you are unfamiliar with Dynamo, this is a great tutorial from the folks at Autodesk. There's a whole series of tutorials if you start here that will get you going. And if you are unfamiliar with Python, this is a great course through Coursera. There's 5 courses that will get you started with Python. So to get going, I'm going to assume that you have either gone through these tutorials or you've discovered other ways to build an Alexa skill using Python. And once you have that knowledge, we can continue. But I'm gonna start with the assumption that you are able to do that. So first, here we have our Alexa skill. No, she heard me. All right, so we're just going to focus on the hello skill that will allow you to connect to Revit. So you should be able to build a skill. Now this has no slots and no slot type, so it's very, very simple. All it does is say hello. So, and then we will have a very simple script. Now, if this doesn't make sense, you should go back and look at the Python Flask tutorial, and all of those links will be in the description, so you can get those from there. And what may not be familiar to you if you've gone through that tutorial and you've made a skill is this pandas. You don't actually need this, but I use it, and I will show you how I use that later. So you should be able to make this skill, and all this does right now is say hello. It doesn't actually connect to Revit. All it does is if you call this skill, it will say that message. And so let's go ahead and get this running. So the first thing we need to do is run ngrok. Now your port may be different than mine. I'm using port 9000, but you can use a different port. And then what we need. Okay, so we'll need this link here. I'll just copy that, and then over in our developer services, we'll go to configuration, and we'll need to paste that in right there. So that is our tunnel. Just go to next. That works. Okay. So now that's connected. Now we need to run our Python script. So here, okay, so that, now this script is running. So we should be able to call Alexa and ask her to run this intent. So we can say, Alexa, ask the intern to say hello.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Alexa, ask the intern to say hello to Revit.
Hello, Revit. I like the cut of your jib.
Okay. There's 2 V's in Revit here, just so Alexa says it correctly. It sounds weird if we've only got the 1 V. And so here in our console, you can see what came back. It ran the hello intent, and this is it went and grabbed this from our Python script, and then sent that back to Alexa. So So we have that working. We just now need to connect this script to Revit. And the way we do that is I wrote, well, first let's look at Dynamo. Let's look how we've got that set up. So I'm gonna pull up Dynamo here. All right, so this is our Hello Revit Dynamo graph. And you can see what we're doing is we're grabbing an annotation. We're saying we want that text parameter from that annotation, and we want to put a value in that text parameter. And the value we want to put in is Hello Revit. But we only want to put that in if something is true. If it's false, we don't want to say anything. So if we connect this here, now what this graph is doing is saying, okay, go get that label in the text parameter, say hello Revit if this is true. Don't say anything if it is false. And that's what this does. This is actually, this is really just a if statement. We could have used an if statement here. So I could say test it, test if that's true or false. And then if it's true, say hello Revit, and if it's false, say nothing. So that's the exact same thing. And we can see that work. So that's sent to automatic. We can see that work here. If I change this to true, hello Revit. If I change that back to false, nothing. Okay, so now the next thing is that true false boolean, it's the same as 0 1. So if I have just a 0 here and I connect that instead of this boolean, it's the same thing. So right now nothing happens. If I change that to a 1, there, okay, it happened there. So if that's a 0, it goes away, and if that's a 1, it comes back. So that's how you can switch things on and off in Revit. So you can create an elaborate graph, and at a certain point you can connect a switch to it to say, hey, only run this graph, only do this thing if this is set to true. And then what we've done here is we've created a switch that allows you to control, switchboard that allows you to control any element in Revit based on whether or not something is true or false. It also could work as a dial, so well, I'll get into that when I kind of explain what this is. So the main takeaway between connecting Alexa to Revit via Dynamo is using a CSV file. So Dynamo can easily spit out or read a CSV file. And what we're asking it to do here is read the switchboard CSV file, which just looks like this. It just has two headings, switch and state. So it's saying this switch is set to off. This switch is set to off. This switch is also set to off. And so if I set this switch to on, let me connect that first in Dynamo. So rather than this code, switching it, we're going to use this. And so if this is a 1, this is going to turn on. And so I'm going to go back to this CSV file and say that's a 1, save it, and Hello Revit popped up. So if I take that back to 0, Hello Revit went away. So that really is the main thing of how this whole thing works, is just we're talking two CSV files via the Python script from Alexa, and then, oh, she heard me again. And then we're saying, then Dynamo is reading that and manipulating the model. So that is how that works. And all this does, this switch, it's a switchboard really, and then each individual switch, let me open that up. We're bringing in the file, we're saying this is our list of switches. And this is more complicated than it needs to be, but you get the idea. So I want this first list, which is my first switch, which is switch 00. And so I'm saying, hey, from that list, grab the first item, well, technically the second item, and then here it is. So I've grabbed that, and now grab that that second item from this list, and that gives me the 0, which is what is being spit out over here. So that's how I get the 0 here. Now with the Python script, so here's how we make that work. So this is our switch function, and you'll notice that it doesn't have an intent. This is not linked to the Alexa service. This is just run within our own program. So we've got a function called setSwitch, and it takes a switchboard, which is the name of the file to go get. It takes a switch number, which is the actual switch that we want to change, and then the new state. So we want to say, make that switch on, make that switch off. And then this is where I've used pandas. You don't need to use pandas. You could use a dictionary or some other immutable object. I like to use pandas in other places, and it's just fairly easy to bring this in and manipulate and spit it back out. So that's why I've used a pandas data frame. If you are unfamiliar with pandas data frames, that's okay, as long as you realize what we're doing here. So what this line does is this says, hey, go grab that CSV file. Which CSV file? The one named switchboard, so the one that you've called out. And then I want to set the index of that data frame to switch. And what that just does is move the name of the switches as the key value pair in that data frame. And then this line says, hey, I want to take that value. I want to take that value, which one? The one that is associated with the key, this key, which I've put in up here. And I want to change that state, and I want to change that state to new state, which I've told here. So, and then I want you to write that back out to the CSV file. So so this is our function. Now, in order to connect these two, so this is the key to connecting this script to Dynamo is right here. We'll put in this line of code. And so what this line of code is doing is it's saying, hey, go get this function. I want this file, switchboard test, which is the name of my switchboard file. I want switch 00, and I want that to be in the one state, in the true state, or the on state. And if that happens, then go ahead and say this. Actually, it doesn't say if that happens. It does both of these simultaneously. There is no if statement in here, obviously. But it says go do that, and then say this. So now let's save this file. and I'm going to go back over and rerun. I canceled our script, and I'm going to save that and now rerun that. And that started up again. Okay, so this is now being run. We have our switch connected to our if statement. So now we should be able to drive this from Alexa. So Alexa, ask the intern to say hello to Revit.
Hello, Revit. I like the cut of your jib.
And that's how that works. In some of the other examples, I ended up creating just a very, very rudimentary, I ended up creating just a very rudimentary finite state machine, which then allows you to get that yes and no responses to trigger something else. And I might go ahead and make another tutorial about that in the future, but this should be enough to get you started. All we're doing is we're saying, hey, let's change this file, and we're going to change just this one yes or no aspect, and then Dynamo is going to say, okay, did that change? Yes, that changed. And if that is true, we just said that's true, now we want to do this. So the other way that works is I've got, a similar switch up here, and this could switch, a number of different, you could just have one switchboard that switches a number of different graphs. So you could have 30 graphs set up here, and none of them are running. They're just waiting for this file to change to tell them to run. So how that works here is I've gone out and I've got the room schedule, and I write that to a CSV file, and then I write that CSV file back into Revit. But what I want to do is, if I change something, I want to say, hey, don't write that file. Instead, I want you to read that file. So it's going to switch the input and say, if that's true, now I want you to get that file I want you to get that information from this CSV file. I don't want you to get that information from the Revit model. So right now it's getting the information from the Revit model. If I go in and change this to CPT3, it's gonna reflect that here because it's getting it from the Revit model, not from the CSV file. And this switch just says, hey, instead of getting it from the Revit model, now go get it from this file. And that's how that works. And this is actually a different switch. What this switch does, let me grab that. Instead of a switch, this is a trigger. Because what it does is it does the same thing that the other switch does, but it remembers what the former state is. So it remembers if it was already on or off. And then it switches it to the new state. It waits a little bit, and then it switches it back to the old state. So it basically just turns on, and then it turns off. And what that does is it says, hey, go get something from this file and load it into the model, and then the model will run it back into that file. And it just allows you to be able to still have control from the Revit model rather than from the script. If it was reading from this CSV file the whole time, if you changed it here, it would just go grab the old information and put it back in, and you wouldn't be able to update it in both places. So that's how that switch can be used there. And then another example of the switch is in the print. What I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, this value in the switch, set that to which view set I want to run. So this is saying, hey, grab this view set because it's set to the first item of the index. And then this next one is saying, hey, which printer do you want to print to? Well, that's set to 4, so you could change that value to a different printer. So right now it's set to the Adobe PDF. And then this last value is the on or off to say, yes, send this print now, or don't send this print, just sit here and wait for me. And it has additional switches that could be connected to other things as this graph matures. So right now, these are all pretty simple graphs, but you can hopefully get the idea that you could create some pretty complicated things in Revit and then be able to just switch it on or off really quickly via voice through the Alexa device. And I think the real power comes in because you can get any information that you want out of the Revit model through Dynamo, and then once that is out of Revit, you can query it, you can manipulate it, and then quickly run it back in, all via voice command, which is pretty cool. So I know this was pretty high level. I hope it still gave you some information that you can use to make your own Alexa-controlled Revit models. So thanks, and if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and share them, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.